Manchester City! After 4 minutes of stoppage time! And we await extra time! City have come back from the dead! Warlock has made a quick run here down the channel. It's one stick on the counter! And from despair to delight, the City fans celebrate! Would you believe it? Balotelli. Silver again. Balotelli. Pitbull. Toure. Manchester City have one hand on the FA Cup. Manchester United have done all they can. That Rodri goal was enough for the 3 points. Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. And watch it, breaking in. There's a good try. Oh, incredible! Ilkay Gundogan. Right from the start. That is stunning. Manchester City have done it! Once, twice, 3 times the champions! Champions of Europe finally! History made in Istanbul! The treble complete! The greatest story in club history has an ending! And what a final chapter!
Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. We are top of the league. We have got 3 points on the board. There are plenty of things to be happy about, but we can't pretend we aren't all just looking at that Arsenal game and going, we haven't got Rodri. We haven't got Rodri going into the Arsenal game. It's a massive, massive blow for City. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing. A moment of madness from Rodri, but at the end of the day, we did see 2 very differing performances, 2 halves. Again, we seem to be a team of 2 halves at the minute. The first half, we come really strong today. The last 2 games, we've been pretty average, missing chances against West Ham, going 1-0 down against West Ham, going 1-0 down against Red Star. Yet the second half, the team come on brilliant. Fantastic, clinical, taking chances, creating chances. Today, first half, 2-0 up with some sublime football, sublime, incredible goals. Both of them a different style. The first goal had a little bit more of direct approach with Rodri's switch to Kyle Walker, but that cushioned pass, that little touch from Kyle Walker was delightful. Just right into the path of Phil Foden. Doesn't need to break stride. Left foot, drives it. Bottom right-hand corner, absolutely fantastic from Phil Foden. From the team, from Rodri over to Walker, and then Walker's touch to Foden. Brilliant. The second goal's my favourite, though. I much prefer it, to be honest. I love that first goal, but that second goal was so good. Nunes, who was fantastic. I've already seen Douglas in the chat saying we were good today. Nunes was a proper player. Totally agree. Totally agree. Nunes now is showing why we signed him. And we're going to very much need him going into the Arsenal game. Could Kovacic come in? I'll get onto Rodri in a minute, but I did want to talk about the positives we need to take away today, because I know we're all thinking about that Arsenal game. That's what we're focused on, aren't we now? That's even when that red card was flashed straight into Rodri's face from Anthony Taylor, you're thinking about the Arsenal game with 45 minutes to play in the second half against Forest, and the game's not won yet. I know I was, and I'm pretty sure most of you City fans will be doing the same. But there were plenty of positives to take away from the game. That second goal, the team movement was absolutely so good. So good. Núñez stepping over the ball, but he didn't just step over it from Kyle Walker's pass into Núñez, but Núñez steps over it and then leaves it for Phil Foden. Núñez carries on his run. He doesn't stop and admire his little step over. He doesn't admire it. He carries on his run because he knows that he's going to get on the end of it from Phil Foden. It was almost like, it was just like an orchestra. Just like that movement was just perfection. So good. Núñez then fires in a little dinky cross all the way to the back post to Erling Haaland, who says, I am not missing this chance. I'm not missing it. After all the chances I've missed against West Ham and Red Star Belgrade, I'm burying this. And you could see it in his face. It oozed out of his face, that frustration, that little, it was just giving it one of them, giving it large, like, yes, I meaning business. That chance in the second half from Erling Haaland, though, is a problem. We can't keep missing chances like that because that was such an opportunity to really kill the game off. At 2-0, I still felt quite confident. But the best chance of the second half still came City's way. There wasn't a Jonny chance, but there was that chance from Erling Haaland to finish the game 3-0, done and dusted. Game over at that point, isn't it? It's game over. Yet we had to go into it thinking, oh, God, we're frustrated now. But Erling Haaland needs to just, compose himself a little bit more. He seems to be scoring the hard ones and missing the easy ones right now. He got his goal. He's still top goal scorer. Is it 8 goals to his name now? You know, you can't argue with the numbers that he's putting on the board, but you can have an argument about the chances that he is missing, because there will come a day where it'll come back to bite us more than just the image of Erling Haaland and protecting the whole image of Erling Haaland missing chances, protecting that. Points could be lost from chances like that. That's the issue. But not today. 3 points on the board. So we can't make it too about Erling Haaland missing that chance. And we should focus on Erling Haaland scoring instead. Because it was a good goal. It was a really good goal. Right, now on to Rodri. What the fuck are you thinking right there? First of all, I thought, and I think a lot of City fans thought, Gibbs-White went down way too easy. Way too easy. You look at it back, and he did go down too easy, but you would expect a City player to go down and win the red card. He won that red card. He wasn't a... You just can't do that. You can't put your hand on someone's throat in a strangling motion, albeit it was more of a push than a genuine grab, and he didn't hang on to him. He just pushed him. But he pushed him at the neck, and he almost had a second grab with his left. Now I've seen it back again. He almost had a left hook again, with an open-palmed hook like that, into the throat again. And then he realised what he'd done as Gibbs-White rolled his eyes in the back of the head like he's been shot by some sniper, and he just goes down, and then Rodri's like grabbing his shirt trying to pull him back up, like, don't you go down, you're going to get me sent off, you twat. And then down he goes, red card straight into the face, and you can't argue. He's played the game and he lost. Gibbs-White played the game and he won, and that's the nature of the beast, and you can't do that, and it's really unfortunate. Now you move on to the thought process of what do we do? Obviously, everyone's focusing on the Arsenal game, the Newcastle game. Maybe Rodri could have been rested in that game anyway, because I do think Pep Guardiola will look at that Newcastle game in the League Cup midweek. Watch along doing it for the, by the way, so come and join me for that in the watch along, and everyone who joined me in the watch along today, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Really good watch along today. The Newcastle game is the one where I think Pep was probably going to rotate anyway. I wouldn't say he's writing off the League Cup, but it has to be fourth priority on the trophy list, doesn't it? It has to be. So with the injuries that we're already suffering and now the forced hand of a red card to Rodri, you're going to see changes. Calvin Phillips coming in. And then obviously there's the Wolves game. But no Rodri against Arsenal is the issue, isn't it? That's the one game that I think everyone's going to be focused on. And what do we do without Rodri? Will we play Calvin Phillips? I was speaking with the chat, and I personally came to the agreement with the chat, and you might all still be in there now, that I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, John Stones is back. Because if we have John Stones back, that's a real solid physical presence. If he can emulate those performances that he did in the end of last season, the last 10 games of last season, John Stones was just like a Rolls Royce in defensive midfielder. The issue with John Stones is, did Rodri and Stones go hand in hand together? They worked really well. Now you haven't got the Rodri Stones physical 6'2", 6'3" beast guys, big physical presences, ballers as well. Instead now you could have John Stones and Kovacic and Núñez, who aren't going to offer you that much protection physically and defensively. You're going to have more of a defensive mind, and John Stones has to protect them defensively instead. That's the issue with now John Stones or Núñez, or John Stones and Kovacic. Or will it be Calvin Phillips and Núñez, which is risky. It's risky because the only way we'll know is if Calvin Phillips is played against Newcastle and then played against Wolves. And if he plays in those two games, plays really well, 90 minutes in each game for Calvin Phillips, comes through it without an injury, it's risky. It's risky. So I'm a bit worried about Calvin Phillips. This is his chance, though. I mean, if you're Calvin Phillips and you see that red card going up for Rodri, there has to be a selfish part of you inside, selfishly thinking, and understandably so, thinking, I'm in. I'm getting in now. This is my chance. So take it, Calvin. Take it with both hands. This is your chance. Absolutely. Take this chance with both hands and show what we've been missing. What City fans have been accusing you of is wrong. Prove the doubters wrong, Calvin Phillips. Now's your time, and there is no better game to do it than Arsenal away. And I mean, will Pep do it? What do you think, chat? I've been ignoring you. Good to see so many of you in the chat already. This was typical City, to be honest. Not the channel, just the performance, you mean. Danny W. Attacked really well and defended really well under the circumstances. Completely agree, mate. If we can beat Newcastle with our team, it's a surprise victory, says no. But it depends what they play. You know, I think with them having Champions League football, they will probably see the League Cup as a bit low down on their priority because they've got to manage fixture congestion. Last season, Newcastle had Premier League football and domestic football. That's it. That's all they could focus on. So last season, if this was the same fixture, you'd think Newcastle are going to go balls deep into that League Cup game, aren't they? They're going to go full on, completely. This time, I think this could be, you could see Newcastle switch a few in and switch a few out, but they've got decent depth, you know, very good depth. Whereas we are struggling. We are strapped for depth right now. And you add to the fact that we're adding suspensions to that now, it's a bit of a shit scenario, isn't it? Hopefully Phillips proves us wrong and takes his chance, says Villasa. Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Jeff Spruance, good to see you, mate. Cover, Núñez and Foden would still be an amazing midfield. Phil Foden, by the way, what a performance today. Absolutely brilliant from Phil Foden. Fantastic performance from him. A performance that's been a little bit, I wouldn't say a long time coming, because it wasn't that long ago that he played against Newcastle and was absolutely brilliant in that game as well. In between that Newcastle performance and today's performance, he dipped a little bit, didn't he? He did dip, but today with Phil Foden, that's the Phil Foden we all love. That we all come to watch Manchester City and see number 47, Phil Foden. That's what we want. That Phil Foden performance today was absolutely brilliant. He was everywhere. He was absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to pull up his individual stats for you as I'm waffling, trying to buy myself some time, and I've got them. So here we go. Phil Foden today was 1 goal, 66 touches, 49 accurate passes, 96% passing accuracy, 6 ground duels won, 3 successful dribbles, 2 tackles, 2 clearances, a key pass, an interception, a shot on target, and 1 accurate long ball. That's just man of the match performance. It's absolutely man of the match performance. Add a goal to that, of course, as well, and total man of the match performance. Brilliant. You're just looking at the Spurs game now, aren't you? Spurs tomorrow against Arsenal, and come on, Spuddos, isn't it? Come on, Spurs. Can we see Arsenal drop more points and have a cushion going into that game where we could afford to draw? You know, we could afford to draw against them. Really, you want to go there and beat them. And if we do, I wouldn't say the league's done yet, you know, because it's too early to say that. Even, you know, what would it be, 9 games in, 8 games in at that point when we go to the Emirates? But still, it would be a huge statement to go there and beat them this early in the season. But they've got games to play before that. We've got games to play before that. Bernardo Silva coming back. Could he be factored in playing? We've seen Bernardo Silva play defensive midfield. Could he be the answer? He's a bit more of an attacking man. You put Kovacic and Bernardo Silva. Where's the defensive mindset there? You know, and Núñez and Bernardo Silva. You've obviously got the Portuguese camaraderie, and they could link up well linguistically. But on a football pitch, they're two more or less attacking-minded players. And we need to protect our back line. And Rodri, is fantastic at it, and right now he's getting both ends of the pitch well. You know, he's going up the other end and scoring goals, Rodri. So we're not just losing Rodri from a defensive midfielder point of view. We're almost missing him from a number 8, box to box, getting goals. That goal against Red Star, goal against Sheffield United. He's brilliant. It's just a moment of stupidity, and there's no hiding behind it. I know we all love him, but that was just stupidity. Real immaturity from a man that you never ever accuse of being immature. You know, in a moment like that, normally Rodri, he can show his temper. That's the moment where you turn round to Gibbs White, he's winding you up, and you just give it one of them. Give him a little cheeky wink. Let him know that I know you're trying to wind me up, and here's me winding you up right back. Look at the scoreboard, mate. 2-0. Comfortable. Look at that scoreboard, mate. No problem. 10 minutes later, I'm going to smash the shit out of you with a 50-50 tackle. I'm going to win the ball, and I'm going to take you with it. That's what you do. You don't go headbutting him or fucking strangling him or Edison as well, going headbutting Awani. He was a moment of madness as well. Crazy moments. Grealish comes onto the pitch and squaring up to people as well. Where was that coming from? That was a little moment of madness. We had complete control of the game. It's really frustrating to see 3 of our key players, Grealish, Edison and Rodri, all 3 losing their heads temperamentally and risking the case of more suspensions. And it's even more worse that Edison did it, knowing that he's just seen his teammate Rodri do it and get sent off. You think Edison squaring up to Awani there, headbutting each other. Luckily, Awani was just as angry as Edison was, and neither of them caved and wanted to be the one to roll on the floor. But the first one who goes down gets the other one sent off. Thankfully, that didn't happen to be the case, because we can't afford to lose Edison as well. But how many matches will Rodri be suspended? 3, says D. Harsh. There's no way we're appealing that. It would be a waste of time. It would be frivolous. In fact, you can get done now, can't you? Not now. You used to always get done for it. If you because teams used to appeal cards back then, because they knew that they would take the whatever you call it, the board or the panel of individuals that would investigate red cards that have been appealed. It would go to them, and they would take some time over it. And if there was a game happening like 2 days later or 3 days later, if a decision wasn't made because the appeal made that the case, that player could play in the next game. Obviously, Arsenal's the 3rd game away, so there's no way of that happening. I'm not sure if that even still can be applied. But what they did for teams that used to manipulate that rule by appealing, knowing that they could play in the next game, even though they knew it was a straight red, they would get an additional game on top of it because it was deemed frivolous, as in a waste of time. So therefore, they would turn it a 3-game ban into a 4-game ban. So there's no way City are appealing it. I'm not sure if that frivolous, time-wasting appeal is still in play, and it would be a waste of time because we aren't going to play him against Newcastle anyway. So I think City are just going to take it on the chin, go forward. It's not the most difficult scenario we've ever faced, is it? You know, but it's piling up. The problems are piling up. So it's not all doom and gloom because we've won all our games so far this season and we looked very comfortable even with 10 men. It's not all doom and gloom for City fans. But the problems of injuries and Kovacic and Bernardo Silva, Rodri's red card, Jack Grealish spent a bit of time. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne, that's the biggest blow, isn't it? That's the massive, massive blow. Yet that massive blow has harmed us. You know, we've won all our games without Kevin De Bruyne. Wait till he comes back. Wait till these problems dissipate and we end up with a fully fit, fully fresh, no one suspended Manchester City squad, and we're top of the league, and in the knockout stages of the Champions League, the rest of the country will crap themselves knowing that. If we can maintain this position with all the problems that we're facing without the excuses, that we're not pouring excuses into the public either, you know. Imagine if Arsenal had lost, you know, what's this? This is the equivalent of losing Partey. And then the injury, losing to Kevin De Bruyne, that's like losing Odegaard. Bernardo Silva's out, let's call that Saka. Imagine if Arsenal lost all those players. Imagine what they'd say. And imagine their thought process going into their future games. They would shit themselves. So City are not doing that. And we don't ever do that now because we know throughout, from top to bottom, the thoroughness of this club is just there for all to see. The quality is there for all to see. Jay Da Vinci says, I don't think Pep will play Phillips if Kovacic returns before the Arsenal game. I think he has to play Phillips in the Newcastle game, really. It would be a bit of a mad one to not play him. You feel for Calvin Phillips if he doesn't play. The fact that he came onto the pitch is an indication that he's there. Pep's aware of him, because there are times where I'm like, Pep, do you even know Phillips is there? Do you even know he's on the bench? Because there's times where you're playing other players ahead of him that are surprising me. And there has been no faith in Calvin Phillips. I'm torn on Calvin Phillips because I'm not torn on Pep Guardiola. That's the reason why I'm torn on Calvin Phillips, is because I have every part of me believes in Pep Guardiola and I trust his judgment, and you're a fool if you don't. But the fact that he's now forced his hand, is he happy with Calvin Phillips playing, or was that a case of I've got no other options today? I have to play Calvin Phillips today to see out the game. There was one point made in the watch along as well that I wanted to bring to people's attention was I thought Haaland did really well. Other than that miss against 10 men, Haaland did well in that second half. He put himself about. He tried to impose a different element of his game, which is not known for, getting back, and he was in the Rodri position when we were being pinned back by Forest. Haaland was on the edge of the area at times. He was getting back for corners, clearing it. He was mounting the odd counter-attack. He was trying to bring down the occasional long ball. Sometimes he did successfully, but he was going up against three big centre-backs in Willy Bolly as well as Nia Carter. Really good, solid defenders to go up against from the aerial side of the game. He did really well, but I thought that game suited Alvarez to stay on the pitch, Haaland to come off throughout for that second half. Not because Haaland deserves to be punished in any way, just because Alvarez is such a busybody and he's a pest to the opposition that I think Alvarez suits being on a 10-man side, being outnumbered, because he runs about like a madman. You know, he'll close them down. And he can carry the ball better than Erling Haaland. So in the transition of a counter-attack, I think Alvarez is a better shout. And I see the counter to that is what a lot of you highlighted in the chat was there's the long ball option with Haaland and getting out quicker and just firing it up, and Haaland get underneath it, bring it down, allow City to come up the pitch and counter them that way. Didn't really work that well. There was the odd occasion where Haaland won the odd ball, but City weren't really. There was a moment where City had a corner and no one was in the box, you know, and that was like the 80th minute. So 10 men again, though, you know, it showed two sides of our game, and I think the good thing about the second half was it was good practice for. I know the level of opposition is very different, Forest versus Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, but it was practice for defending, because we're going to go into Champions League knockout stages later into the season, like we saw last season at the Allianz Arena, where we were up against it, big time up against it, and we defended valiantly, so good defensively, and hit them on the break instead, which is not normally our game. At the Bernabeu, there was a couple of moments, bear with me, there was a couple of moments in the Bernabeu game in the first leg where we had to defend, and we did it really well. Again, Diaz and Akanji today was fantastic, really good. Couple of block shots, really good tackles, getting on the end of crosses, preventing Alanga and Hudson-Odoi came on. They threw everything at us in that second half. That's Forest full gung-ho attack. They didn't score. They had one chance to speak of where Awani boots it over the bar, which was the moment before Edison and Awani locked horns. But ultimately, it was a solid defensive performance. So we saw the clinical nature of the first half of Erling Haaland and Phil Foden, and we came away with 6 shots in that first half, 4 on target, 2 goals. So back to being clinical in the first half. Not too many chances to speak of. Second half, obviously the red card forced our hand and we had to play defensively, but we answered all those questions. Any cross that came in, dealt with. Any threat, away, get gone. So again, I'm really pleased with the performance. I'm just gutted about the red card. Char Baba says, seemed like Rodri needed a break. Well, he's got one. He's got one. Probably not one that in the manner that he wanted to get one, but he's got one. Kovacic, Nunes and Bernardo can play in that number 6 role, says Vinny. Yeah, Bernardo is the riskier one out of all those 3 you've named. You're just looking at Stones, aren't you? I am anyway. What do you think about Stones coming straight in? It's just Juan Malilo said before the Fulham game that Stones is this close to being back, didn't he? He said he was this close to coming back. And yet here we are, 3 or 4 weeks later with no John Stones. It seems like the injury is either evolved or it's a new injury. He's picked up a different type of injury and he's out for some time. I would like to get a date on that, because if we could get him back for the Arsenal game, we've got some physical presence going up against Odegaard and Partey and Declan Rice, and that's what we want. You know, that's what we need. And I think Bernardo Silva's a risky option to play in defensive midfield. It could pay off, though, because control-wise, you can't get much more control of the ball than Kovacic and Bernardo Silva or Nunes and Bernardo Silva. We would dictate that midfield when we have the ball. It's without the ball that I'm thinking about, and we will have moments without the ball because it's Arsenal and we have to respect that. Nightcrawler, VAR reviewed it for violent conduct. If someone gets a red card for violent conduct, they're suspended for 3 games. Yep. Absolutely. Fargery Daniels, looks like Haaland has a clause in his contract that prevents Pep from taking him off the field because it would have made more sense to keep Alvarez on. I know about the clause. I think that's not. I can't see that being any truth to that. Surely not. But I agree with keeping Alvarez on. I think he should have done. But no. I don't think there's a clause. Surely not. That's the nonsensical way to operate a football team. Big M, happy we got the win and a clean sheet. Shame on Rodri for the red though, but I'm sure Pep will cook something to counter the setback. Yeah, Eric, Arsenal fan, I see you down there, mate. He's a nice guy, by the way. Don't pick on him. He's an Arsenal fan that has been following me for quite some time, and he's yeah, there you go. City are a force. I can't wait for the City versus Arsenal game. Should be good. Haaland, Foden, and Edison on my FPL, so I'm all round happy for the City winning the clean sheet. Yeah, mate, I'm looking forward to the game myself. A little less so than I was before Rodri's suspension, in truth, but I'm still looking forward to it nonetheless. Stones can fit in when Rodri's absent, says Alaji. I really don't think it was actually on his throat, but we will see. No, I don't think he grabbed him. It was just the push. It was like it's little, well, pathetic, really. Like, why do it? Like, you know, it was crazy. Crazy little moment, a little flash in the pan moment from Rodri. And I know full well if you interview him now, none of you can probably get a mic and stick it under his nose because we're not in that position to do that. But if we hear a Rodri interview about that moment, he'll admit that was stupid. I'm sure he will. He won't defend it. He won't say, the guy dived. Like, he won't. He'll know you can't put your hands on someone's neck. You know, I think Casemiro got something the same last season, wasn't it? It was like even less than this, to be honest, and he got sent off for a similar situation last season around the neck. Yeah, Phillips gets his chance now, says SDL, and I hope he takes it. What are your thoughts on the left wing position with Doku challenging Grealish now, says Jasper? I think he's going to play in the game that suits the team we're going up against. I think Doku was a perfect type of player for today's game, knowing we're going up against a low block. There are games where I have a feeling Doku won't play against Arsenal. That's the type of game where I don't think we'll see Doku. You might not like to hear that, but I think we need to have more control against the type of opposition like that will have the ball themselves. So therefore, we need to keep the ball as often as possible and prevent them from stringing 10, 15 passes together and presenting a threat against us. The best way to stop the opposition from scoring is have the ball. Doku doesn't keep the ball as well as Jack Grealish, albeit he poses a very different threat against a low block where the defence is just so packed and we can't get in. You need to kick that door in sometimes, just with a big boot. Kick that door in, smash it open with brute force. And by brute force, I mean Jeremy Doku's skillful ability. That's what I mean, in just knocking it past you, sprinting past you, that 5-yard burst of speed that Jack Grealish doesn't possess that. He doesn't have that ability. These sorts of games, Doku's perfect for it. Against West Ham, it was a bit of a low block from them. Sheffield United, we didn't see him, of course. Fulham, we saw it a little bit, little glimpses of Doku. But Jack Grealish against Arsenal, I think he probably suits it a little bit more. Where we can keep the ball. But I think he's going to divide people. That debate is an interesting one. The left wing position, Jack Grealish versus Jeremy Doku. I think it is a divisive part of the pitch for Manchester City. I'm waiting for typical City ownership transfer. Please contact my legal representatives, says Jeff. Jeff, by the way, if you haven't heard about Jeff already, the guy is just a freak of nature. Like, the guy just predicts goals whenever he wants. It's just it's abnormal now because we scored at the start of the game. Before the game even kicked off, he said Foden to score in the first 20 minutes while sending me a super chat. He did it against Doku. He said at the start, at half time, he predicted Jeremy Doku to score, to equalise it against West Ham. He said against Arsenal in the Community Shield, Cole Palmer to come off the bench and score. That is a mental prediction alone. But then to back it up with 2 other predictions is just off the charts, to the point where I said, mate, if Foden scores in the first 20 minutes, I'm giving you my channel. And I've fucked myself there, haven't I, really? So, Jeff, I'll send you the credentials for my channel, username and password, if you want, mate. Then you can just sit here, mate. I know you're in America, but I'll send you my channel, mate, no problem. It's getting ridiculous now, mate. Kick out the jams with Doku, says Douglas. I'd like to see a situation where Doku and Grealish get to play together on the left, with Grealish playing more in midfield. That's not a bad shout, because that's not... We've never seen it, really, have we? He would have... That meant Foden not play, or Alvarez not playing, unfortunately. That's the option with that. Would Grealish get ahead of Foden and Alvarez right now? Definitely not. But possibly, maybe, the odd game would be interesting to see, because we know Grealish did that for Villa, and it's a very different Grealish we've got. That free spirit of Jack Grealish at Aston Villa, I don't think we've ever seen that. You know, this ability to just drift into the pockets, shooting from outside the box. He's got a much more of a restricted role at City, and he's abiding by Pep's rules. He's listening to Pep, and he's accepting this role, and he's doing a good job, Jack Grealish. But yeah, there is a part of me that would like to see him be a little bit more of a free spirit. Would be good to see. Another easy win for City, says Jamzor. Yeah, in a way, the game was done. I said it 2-0. That's the game, really. It would take a moment of madness for the game to turn, and that moment of madness nearly happened with Rodri. Well, it did happen, and the ramifications of that moment of madness nearly happened. But yeah, unbelievable moment from Rodri, and thankfully it hasn't been punished. I'm sure he's shaking the hands of everyone in the City squad, saying sorry about that, but thanks for bailing me out. At least we got the 3 points, and hopefully we can get the 3 points against Arsenal. 95 in the building so far, 35 likes. If we can bump 34, sorry, if we could bump that up, that would be very much appreciated. I'm also thinking of doing, are there any FIFA fans in the chat? I know a few of you in the watch along let me know that you would like to see a few FIFA videos, but well, what I'm planning on doing is a like a preview type thing. So hypothetically, before the Forest game this weekend, I would have done a City versus Forest, a bit of a longer game, live stream, me playing against, do the team that I predict would play against Forest, and week on week do a sort of preview, a FIFA preview of the game we're about to play. Do it in the Champions League and do it in the Premier League as well. Just something different, something. It will still be first and foremost a Manchester City channel. This will be a secondary thought, but still I'll try something new, see if you guys are into it. But yeah, Jonny raging at the diddling AI will be class. Yeah, mate, I get fuming on FIFA, so it could make for some entertaining viewing, because I will get fuming. But yeah, just an idea, throwing it out there. But thank you very much for joining me in the match reaction. It's been a good 3 points for Manchester City. A bit frustrated because of the Rodri situation, of course. We've got to now look to the future and fixate on that Arsenal game, haven't we? We've got to look at that Arsenal game, and an element of panic has been added because of Rodri, because he has been our player of the season so far, the best player by a long, long way, and we're going into that game without him. If we can come away from that game and beat them, though, think of it that way. Let's put a positive spin on it. Imagine beating them without Rodri, because that would send shockwaves around the Premier League, and the psychological after effect of that would be huge. It would be a damaging result for Arsenal to not get a win, knowing we're going into the game without our best player. 2 of our best players with Kevin De Bruyne, and potential injuries of other players, of course, as well. So we've got the excuses ready, but we don't use them. We don't use them, City fans, and there's no need to use them yet. The game's not been played, but it's going to be a really good game. I'm really looking forward to it. Get your comments in if you're watching after this live. Get your comments in below. I want to hear them, and get your man of the match thoughts as well. Thank you for joining me in the watch long, and thank you for joining me in the match reaction, and I'll see you in the next one.